Today is Sunday, May 1st, 2005, and this is the beginning of an interview with Mike Vargo at my house at 125 Storm Street in Portage, PA. Mike Vargo is 80 years old and having been born on September 6, 1924. Our names are Renee Pachai and Kendra Chakota, and we will be the interviewers. Mike Vargo is my great uncle. He is my mother's uncle. Uncle Mike, could you please state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
U.S. Army.
What was your rank?
Sergeant.
Where did you serve?
Over in the European Theater of Operation.
What were the natures of your duties in this war?
I was a heavy machine gunner, and my job was deployment and of the machine gun. That was it.
Okay. Did you volunteer or were you drafted?
Drafted.
How old were you when you joined the military?
18.
What were your remembrances of boot camp?
Boot camp? No, basic training. That's basic training. Was in Fort McCollum, Alabama, and it was during the months of the latter part of May till September. 13 weeks.
Okay.
13 weeks, and from there I went a furlough to my home for 7 days, and then went to Fort Meade, Maryland. I was there like 5 weeks, and then from there I went to Patrick Henry, Virginia, for 3 days. And then I went to Newport News, Virginia, and got on a merchant ship to go over to Africa, which took 13 days in a 90 ship convoy, 21 days, going 9 knots an hour. And we landed in Oran, Africa, and from there was a replacement camp there at the foot of Line Mountain, and I was there from the day before Thanksgiving till the day after Christmas. I had Thanksgiving meal there and a Christmas meal. So and then from there I went back to Oran and got on a ship and went to Naples, Italy. And from there I went up to central Italy in a replacement center, and I was assigned to the 45th Division. So so I went. So I joined that outfit and went down. They was in a rest area, and we went down, got on a ship, and we made the invasion of Anzio, which was 30 miles south of Rome. And then we was there from the last week in January till May 26th on this beachhead, which was 15 miles wide, 10 miles deep. And we lived in foxholes for 4 months. And then from there went up to we finally took Rome, and then from there we went into back down to Salerno, Italy, and from that was about, I'd say outside of Rome. I was there I must have been there quite a while, at least 5 or 7 days, because I was in Rome twice, and then we went down to Salerno, and we took beach training. We practiced every morning. We'd get on the LCI and would he'd go out to sea and would hit the beach. Hit the beach, go through a farmer's watermelon patch, and that. And, I mean, every morning, and they left you out of the boat, the water up to here, always up I don't know why they knew you keep your head above water, but we did that till August 14th, and then we got on the ships and we set sail for southern France. And I remember going as we're going past Corsica. We picked up a couple of battleships and heavy cruisers, big ships, and so we went in. Then we made the invasion of southern France, and I was in one of those square barges where they have a big gate, you know, and put the gate down on dry land. Never even got my feet wet.
Wow.
And the thing I remember most about that was they must have had before, whether they burned the stuff or whether they had a force fire, but it was 3 days before we met up with the paratroopers, and our clothes was black as black from going through this brush. And I remember there was a town there, and there was a cattle trough in the middle of the town, you know, where the cattle drank their water, and we was washing up there. And I remember there was a peach tree there, and they had peaches on. We was eating peaches, but I remember that. And then from there we went up to, from southern France. Mostly we rode on top of tanks, and we'd go like 6 o'clock in the morning. You'd say, "Okay, let's go," and we'd get up on a tank and we'd drive. The tank would we went into a column, and we'd go like 5 miles or something, and then there'd be a firefight. The Germans would have a couple of anti-aircraft guns or anti-tank guns up on a hill or something, and they'd probably shoot the first couple of tanks out, and we'd get off the tank. We had to dig a hole, and there'd be a firefight, and finally it was over. Get back up on the tank. We did that sometimes 3 times a day. Yeah, and I remember there was times when we'd dig 3 holes in a day. And finally, the last day, we'd get to an objective about, say, between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. And we'd have to dig a hole, and then you had guard duty, 3 guys, so you had 2 hours each. 6 o'clock in the morning, they'd call you, get back up, let's go. And you did that all the way up through France till we come to the northern part of France. And then it was more battle. There was battles and that. And I remember we was in our rest area. We was in a rest area there, and this was like February 45. And the captain came up to me and he says, "How much money you got, Mike?" I looked at my wallet. I had $90, and he says, "You're going to London on a furlough." So the next day I got on the trucks, and then train. I wound up in Le Havre, France. From there I went to Paris, spent a day in Paris, went back to Le Havre, went across got on a boat, went across the English Channel, landed in the southern part of England, went to Southampton, had a 3-day rest period at a rest place, and from there went to London, had 7 days, and on the way back I did the same thing in reverse. 3 days in Southampton, get on a boat, cross the English Channel, go to Le Havre, go to Paris, 1 day in Paris. I was gone 26 days. 26 days to go on a 7-day furlough. And I remember the thing about London was, when I was there, they was bombing it with them V2 rockets, and I stayed in the USO, and I remember there was a lady wave. She was in naval wave, you know, and she was behind me, and we were standing in the breakfast line, and she said, "Boy, wasn't the bombing terrible last night?" I said, I didn't hear nothing. But I stayed there 7, 8. And the thing about it was, I knew what my brother John's patch was, amphibious engineers. And I'm in a barber shop. And there was a soldier in there, and he had the same patch on. And I asked him if he knew John Vargo. And he says, yeah, he's up in Wales. So I'm in London, and he's up in Wales on a furlough, and we never got to meet, but I almost met him, though. If he'd have been in London, I'd have met him. But he went up, he was stationed in England, you know, he made the Normandy invasion, so he was stationed in England. He made some friends up in Wales, and so he was up there. And, okay, to get back to the outfit, I got back to the outfit the afternoon when the outfit was up to the Rhine River. And we went into a house there on the edge of the river, and we looked with field glasses to see what was on the other side of the river. But the river was very wide. The river was very wide. And so we crossed that river that night, 2:30 in the morning. 2:30 in the morning, we got into a motorboat, a boat with a motor on the back of it, and the Germans were shooting all kind of stuff at us, but we made it across the river, and from there we went Germany through Bamberg, and then really the next, well, there was a lot of battles before that, but the main battle was Nuremberg. And for Nuremberg, 3 days. We was in 3 days for the Battle of Nuremberg. And you going house to house, and you're across, you know, you're on this side of the street, and the guy in front of you runs across to a doorway on the opposite side, and the old machine gun bullets go behind him, you know. And you're the next one. And I remember one night we stayed in the Stalag, which was a tavern, you know, where they sold booze and that. And we had a guard on the back door. Back door, never opened it. We could hear the Germans going up and down the street with their hobnailed shoes, but we never opened it. And that was interesting. And then I'd say it was the third day we was in Nuremberg. We couldn't go across this. We'd come up to the edge, like Johnstown has a city park in the middle of the city. Well, there was the houses where we were, and then there was a lot of open ground, and but we couldn't go across there. So we finally waited till it got dark, and we went across there, and we're standing in line. We're standing in line on the street there, and the buildings there are bombed out, you know, and there's rubble by the building, and we're standing there, and the guy in front of me is about 10 feet in front of me, and all of a sudden, chunk, 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 I hear 4 mortars going off. And something told me to go over this building. And I went over to this rubble, and just when the first shell was going to land, you could hear, I dove behind the rubble, and the first shell landed where I was. The guy in front of me, he got his head injured, and but I don't know what told me to just go over there, but something did, and then we took the guy with his head injury. We took him downstairs in a building there, and we dressed his head in that, and he had 2 bottles of cognac, which is whiskey. Okay, and one had about this much in the bottom, about an inch, and the other one was full. And he says, pour some of that full one, make that half a bottle. He says, I can drink that before they take me back to the hospital. But I never saw him after that. Dixon was his name, but I never saw him after that. And then from there, we went down to Munich, and we came to the outskirts of Munich, we could see the city. But we got there, it was dusk, you know, I mean, it was semi-dark. And I'm putting the machine gun up in the window of a barracks, a military barracks. And I'm putting the machine gun in the window, and this German come up with a rifle and said something to me in German. And I hollered, the German outside, and somebody went out and captured him, and but that was, and so another outfit went through us the next morning, and they went across from where we were in the barracks. There was all open ground, like maybe a half a mile to the city, and we stayed in this barracks, and it was all a bullet would go through one end and out the other end, you know, because it was all prefabricated stuff. And so we stacked up. There was some tables there. We stacked up tables, and we hid behind the tables. Well, when we wanted to, and I remember there was a tank right next to our barracks, and it was on fire. The Germans hit it, and it was a battle royal. And the outfit that went across that open ground, they called holy heck. But it was just a one morning battle, and so then we went into the city the next day. We went into the city, and we policed up the city, and that was the last combat we did. Now that was, I'd take a guess about the latter part of April or the first part of May. And we stayed and policed Munich. And I remember we was my squad, me and 3 guys. I had 3 guys in my squad. We was assigned this house, and so there was 1 bedroom downstairs, and upstairs we went upstairs, and there was 2 bedrooms up there. So they put one of the guys in the bottom first floor and 2 guys in the upper floor. And I went down in the basement, and there was 2 cots there. 2 cots, and there was a table in the middle with a bottle of whiskey and all kind of shells. And I picked up the pillow, and there was a Luger, that gun that Jim got.
Oh.
Okay, and so and there was a holster and everything with it. So I just put it on my belt, and I slept in one of them cots, and that's where I got the gun.
Oh.
And one of the guys stayed on the first floor. He found a .32 caliber gun, but and that was the last combat. And from there, we went down to the lower part of Germany, almost down to Austria, and different places. I remember the name of the town was Moosach, Mossauch or something like that. And I remember we was going out to play ball. We was going out to play ball, and there was a church there. And we heard somebody said the war ended. So we wanted to go. We went in that church and said some prayers, and then we went out and played ball. But that was and then after the war, it was in Army occupation, and that was a nice time. At least for the first, probably 3 weeks to a month. There was no, there was no provost marshal or anything. There was no. We did whatever we want to. I'd get sergeant of the guard every 3 days. Every 3rd night, I'd have sergeant of the guard, and we lived in a barracks. And like the guy that was on guard at the barracks, he'd come and wake me up, and I had a list of the names, and I'd get the guys and put them out in guard, And that's all I did, one out of 3 days. And the rest of the time we played ball, cards. We always had a barrel of beer. Well, we bought it with German money. And that was funny. We was guarding some prisoners. Our machine gun and I think a company of infantry, and these Germans were down in it was a quarry, and it was all dug up, and there was like 3,000 to 5,000 Germans down there living in tents, and we was guarding them. And I remember we captured whole payrolls in these big cases with all printed new German money. We was burning it to keep warm. but it was no good then. But later on, so I put like we have $51 bills and they put a band around it. This was all new money. So there was 20 marks notes, and that was $1. There was 50 of them, and I put it in my pocket. But I could have been rich, but I didn't. But so I had that $50, and I spent it. We spent it for beer in barracks, and in Nuremberg, we freed a Russian prisoner, and I could talk to him because I knew Slovak then.
Mm-hmm.
So he stayed with me from Nuremberg on, and after the war he was still with me, and finally a decree come down that you couldn't keep any prisoners or anything, so I let him go. So I had $47 of that $50 left, so I gave it to him. I says, "You'll need it more than I do," and he gave me a hug, and away he went back to Russia. But and then I was in one place there, I had a Jeep driver, a German interpreter, me, and a guy that manned the machine gun. And I used to go around picking up civilian prisoners. That was fun. I remember this one house we went to, and there was people in the house, and I asked them where this certain person was, and they says he's out in the field. I don't know whether he's plowing or what he was, but we went out there and brought him in and put him in jail. But that was fun. But and then finally, it was in October of '45. Went down to, I think we left from Le Havre, got on a train, went down to Marseille, that was down in the southern part of France there, and got on a troop ship, 7,000 troops on a troop ship. Now going across, we was on that merchant ship, 500 soldiers on this merchant ship. That was, so we got on this big boat, and like going across on that merchant ship, everything went sideways. The ship rolled sideways. Now on this big troop ship, it went from front to back, and we was one day away from the States, and we hit a storm. It was stormy. The sea was real rough, and I'm up in the front of the boat, and you know, there's iron things there to put ropes around, you know, when they dock it, and I'm up there, and the boat would come up, and you could see the end of the boat, and then it would start down, and the anchors were over on the side of the ship. The anchors would hit, send water over. I ducked behind the railing, but I was having fun. I'm talking about a roller coaster. I never got seasick, but I never got seasick all the time I was on ships. And finally a captain come up there, a naval captain come up, says, "You're going to have to get off the front of the boat. It's too dangerous." So then I went down. But I was having fun.
Completely through your military, like how long you were in the military, how did you like the food?
Food? When we was back in rest areas and that, we had regular food, you know. There was a kitchen and stuff. In combat, and when you was anywhere close to combat, then you ate either K rations, C rations, and I think it was an M ration. An M was a candy bar. It was like about this big, and they had 3 sections. And they gave you that when, like when you was making a an invasion or something. Then, cause that candy bar was a whole day's meal.
Wow.
Yeah, three blocks, about I'd say about as big as your thumb. That was a meal, and they give you 3 of them, but most of the time you ate K rations, and K ration was a Cracker Jack box. Okay, it had a little can of hydrated food, different things, and then there was a pack of crackers, like four crackers, and then there was 4 cigarettes, and then a C ration. The C ration was 2 cans, like 2 pork and bean cans, and the one had they had pork and beans, stewed beef stew, hash. They had different things, and then the other one had your crackers in, a couple of cigarettes, and sometimes they had a little candy bar in them. And then the M was a candy bar that you put it in your cartridge belt, where you put the ammo in.
Do you remember anything about your officers and anything special about them?
The one in particular that I know of very good, when we hopped off of Anzio, I was carrying a machine gun. Now, a machine gun weighed, it was a machine gun filled with water. It weighed 45 pounds, and the tripod weighed 51 pounds. But I had one or the other, and this lieutenant would always, this was level land, but there was knolls, and every time we'd come to a place where there was a little hill, he'd hand me his rifle and he'd pull me up, help me up the hill. And later on, I didn't actually see him, but one of the fellows said the lieutenant was laying there dead. He got killed. But that's one instance where an officer, where I knew him and he helped me.
What regulations were very frustrating in the service?
Come again?
Like regulations? Were there any regulations that you didn't like? Or didn't
whatever it was, that's what I did. I think, is there a question here about KP?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. But I never, I did what I was told, and that's what I did. And I never had any problems.
What were your duties as a KP? I mean, were you a KP?
Yeah, I was on KP once in all my time in the Army. And see, they always start, when you go to a new place, they always started with A's.